The bride and groom are making their entrance. As the MC's voice fills the venue, a round of applause erupts from the numerous guests, celebrating the main characters of today. I clap loudly to express my congratulations as well. But the moment the bride in the wedding gown entered the venue, I froze. No way. Why on earth is she the bride? I feel I turn deadly pale, but I just keep on staring at her while she walks arm in arm with the groom, smiling happily. What if she finds me? What shall I do? How am I supposed to say? My boss noticed something was off. Then he asked, "Are you okay?" But I couldn't reply him smoothly. Then I could barely say, "That bride, she's my ex-girlfriend." What? Is she the one who ran off with your money? I never imagined that by attending the wedding of the client's executive, my fate and my ex-girlfriend's fate would change so drastically. Happy birthday, Emily. Thanks, Jake. It's my girlfriend Emily's birthday, and we've aligned our schedules to celebrate modestly together. In front of me is a cake with candles and some fancy appetizers I splurged on from the specialty food section at the department store, along with a bottle of pale pink champagne. For this day, I've prepared a small box of gift tied with a yellow ribbon. Here's your birthday present. I hope you like it. Really. I'm thrilled. Can I open it? Of course. While I would tear it open, Emily carefully unwraps it, making sure not to tear the wrapping. It's interesting how such actions reflect one's personality. I ponder this as I watch her hands. Wow, it's beautiful. I gifted her a delicate bracelet with a peridot, the birthstone for her August birthday. The pale green stone seemed to match Emily's gentle nature. I was worried if she'd like it, but her smile reassured me. Sorry is not something more expensive. When I apologize, Emily shakes her head vigorously. It's not about the price. I'm just really happy that you're celebrating with me, she says, smiling. From the start of our relationship, Emily has always been happy with anything I gave her, regardless of the price. Even now, she treasures a cheap accessory I gave her when I was just starting out in my career, making me feel she's too good for me. Jake, do you think it suits me? She asks, showing me her left wrist with the bracelet, a little shyly. The green stone sparkles on the gold chain, fitting Emily perfectly. I still remember that moment vividly. It was truly blissful. I thought that happiness would last forever. But now, Emily isn't beside me. My name is Jake, working at a mid-sized advertising agency. Every day, it's work and then back home. That's my life right now. Jake, there's a singles party with nurses this weekend. Would you like to come? A chance to be friends with charming girls. My colleagues approach me with this invitation during the lunch break. A singles party, huh? I don't feel as excited as they do. I think I'll pass. I declined with a wry smile. Oh, you busy? That's too bad. Can't believe you're turning down such an opportunity. Don't get jealous when I snag an angel for a girlfriend. I'll look forward to hearing about it. They leave after suggesting we should go out for drinks sometime. Young man being so passive, what's up with that? My boss, Mr. Smith, teases me. Mr. Smith, were you watching? When I was your age, I would have joined in no matter what I had on. And that's how you met your lovely wife, right? Exactly. You never know where you might meet someone. He winks at me, looking quite dashing. If I were a woman, I might have been charmed. What's wrong? Can't forget her past love or something. Spot on, as usual. His keen observation hits home, and I can only offer a wry smile. Well, I understand how you feel, but you should really get closure. Closure, huh? His words bring back memories of Emily. I met Emily through a mutual friend. She was different from other women of our age group, more reserved and modest. She always looked neat, which I found appealing, and she didn't splurge much, which I felt was similar to me. It didn't take long for us to start dating. I later learned that Emily came from a father-daughter household. Having seen her cautious with money, I realized it was a skill she developed living with her father. Both my parents and grandparents are alive and well. I haven't really experienced financial struggles, but I can imagine the hardships of a father and daughter living alone. That's probably where I quickly started thinking about marrying Emily. I felt that with her, I could build a calm and warm home. The more time we spent together, the stronger my desire to make her happy grew, especially considering all the hardships she had faced. But then came a turning point. A month after I gave her the bracelet for her birthday, Emily called me to a cafe with a serious look on her face. My dad collapsed. I have to go back home. Is your dad okay? And what about you, Emily? Yes. We'll be fine. He just needs some rest to recover. If you need help, I can come on my days off. No need. The neighbors are helping out. Then, at least let me see you off. Jake, you're busy with work, right? I'm fine. I was worried about her. But no matter what I said, Emily kept insisting she was fine and refused all my offers to help or see her off. I sensed something was off but had no choice but to trust her words. And then Emily quickly returned to her hometown. I was worried if she arrived safely and wanted to hear her voice, so I called, but she didn't answer. However, she did reply with a message, saying, "I can talk on the phone because it might wake up my dad. Please contact me through email or messages." Thinking not to trouble her resting father, I communicated with Emily through messages. A few days after Emily returned home, she messaged me. She reached out to me, expressing, "I find myself in need of borrowing some money." I was taken aback by the unexpected request, but understanding that Emily wouldn't ask unless it was a serious matter, I agreed and promptly transferred the money to the account she provided. I recall experiencing joy upon receiving her message of thanks for the assistance I provided. However, over the next 6 months, the requests for money persisted. I remained deeply concerned about her father's health, which showed little improvement. Once more, I offered to assist, but she declined. Nevertheless, the requests for money persisted. At first, I didn't suspect anything and made the transfers. However, after 3 months, even the usual updates from her ceased. It was then that I began to sense something was amiss and decided to stop the fund transfers. I held on to the hope that she would call, but the only message I received was a cold, "Let's break up," responded with, "I want to talk in person," but received no response. A few days later, her phone became unreachable. Since that day, all contact with Emily has been lost. Was I deceived, or did something happen to her? I had no way to confirm since I knew nothing about Emily beyond her contact information. With that connection now severed, I had no means to verify her situation. That sure is a tough situation to move on from. Mr. Smith commented after I had opened up to him about Emily during our drinks. "Jake, it might be hard to hear, but it's likely you were deceived by that Emily girl." I had already considered this possibility. Emily had shared her local address and phone number, but details about her family, home, or friends were never disclosed. Perhaps she had intentionally kept these aspects hidden from the start. But I can't believe her smiles were all lies, I admitted. Not only when she received gifts, but Emily's smiles in everyday moments are still vivid in my memory. Mr. Smith remained silent for a moment before speaking decisively. "Your honesty is a virtue, but as it stands, she's not reaching out. You'd be better off forgetting her. Holding on will only hurt you. It's time to move on." He handed me the menu, adding, "Today's on me. Order whatever you like." While I understood that Mr. Smith meant well with his words, I couldn't shake the feeling of waiting for Emily. Perhaps it was the absence of a proper goodbye that kept me holding on. I loved her that much. I stared blankly at the glass of vodka that Mr. Smith ordered for me. My reflection in the clear liquid looked like it was about to cry. I downed the remaining vodka in one gulp, Emily's memory flooding my mind more than usual after talking to Mr. Smith. Will time heal this? I wondered, as I continued my usual work routine. Then one day, Mr. Smith called me. "Mr. Smith, did you need me?" "Do you recall Mr. Johnson from Johnson Housing, the executive director?" "Yes, certainly. I've recently been in talks with him about a new advertising plan for a different area. Johnson Housing is a key client for our agency, and Mr. Smith has been managing their account for years. I participated in a meeting with him for learning purposes. And since then, I've occasionally taken on work as Mr. Smith's proxy. Mr. Johnson seemed to appreciate my work and have been very kind. Known for being a gentle and approachable person, he is also recognized as a shrewd businessman. Mr. Johnson is getting married, and he has invited both of us. Can you make it?" "Really? That's wonderful news. I'd be honored to join." I agreed without hesitation. Weddings can be a place for new beginnings. Jake, you should go and share in Mr. Johnson's happiness, Mr. Smith said with a refreshing smile. Internally, I acknowledged my lack of interest in new encounters, yet I smiled back to smooth over the situation. I accompanied Mr. Smith to a luxurious hotel in the city to celebrate Mr. Johnson's marriage. The guests comprised individuals from various industries, not just real estate, showcasing Mr. Johnson's extensive connections. As the reception commenced, the female MC announced to the hall, "Ladies and gentlemen, the bride and groom are ready to enter. Please welcome them with a big round of applause." All eyes turned toward the entrance. The couple, brimming with joy, entered with radiant smiles on their faces. The hall erupted in applause. I joined in, clapping for Mr. Johnson and his wife, my heart filled with good wishes. However, upon seeing the bride walking alongside him, I ceased clapping, frozen in shock. Why is she here? Hey, Jake, what's wrong? Mr. Smith noticed my reaction and asked quietly. I responded in hushed tones. The woman next to Mr. Johnson, that's Emily. She was my girlfriend. Indeed, the bride's name is Emily. What an unbelievable coincidence. I stood there, unable to applaud, simply following Emily with my eyes. Jake, I understand you're confused, but we're in the middle of a reception. Just go through the motions for now. Welcome them with your applause. Mr. Smith lifted my drooping hands. Struggling to grasp his words, I resumed clapping, though without any real strength. The reception continued smoothly. With speeches, toasts, and the cake-cutting ceremony, a joyous atmosphere filled the hall. Except for me. Though I wanted to leave early, I couldn't bring myself to be so rude. Encouraged by Mr. Smith, I braced myself to get through the day. As the meal was served and mingling time began, found it difficult to bring myself to eat. I excused myself to Mr. Smith, mentioning I was going to the bathroom, and left my seat. Are you sure you'll be okay alone? He asked. I couldn't have him accompanying me like a child. Please enjoy your meal, Mr. Smith, I said, forcing strength into my unsteady legs as I left the hall. After leaving the bathroom, my steps were laden with heaviness. I wandered aimlessly to kill time when I heard a voice from behind. Jake. It was Emily's voice, one I hadn't heard in a long time. I turned around. There she was, in a beautiful white dress. Emily. It's been a long time. The irony of our reunion at her wedding to another man, in her bridal gown, almost tempted me want to laugh or complain. However, the moment I saw her, all I felt was relief, because she looks fine. She appeared a bit thinner, likely due to the efforts for her big day. She looked incredibly beautiful. Lost in thought, I noticed it was time for her to change outfits. A woman who seemed to be a family member accompanied Emily. I exchanged greetings with the woman accompanying Emily and struck up a conversation. Congratulations on your day, Emily. I'm glad to see you and your dad are doing well. Emily bit her lip in response to my words. You seem to be doing well too, Jake. Breaking up with me was the right decision, wasn't it? I'm glad. There was something poignant, almost reflective of desperation in her expression. Emily. Was she feeling nervous? Her demeanor had shifted dramatically from the happy smile she had earlier in the hall. It must have been unsettling for her to meet her ex in such a situation, just as it was for me. The woman accompanying her, noticing her state, asked, Are you okay? She glanced at her watch, seemingly conscious of the time. Deciding not to detain her any longer, I was about to leave when a sharp voice called out from the direction Emily had come. Emily, what are you dawdling for? Don't keep Mr. Johnson waiting. A thin man, in a tuxedo approached, his tone intimidating. Sorry, Dad. Emily apologized to the man. Was this her father? He appeared far more domineering than I had imagined. A stark contrast to the gentle and reserved Emily I knew. Despite hearing he had fallen ill 6 months ago, he seemed fully recovered, his voice loud and clear. I addressed him. You're Emily's father, correct? I was surprised to hear about your illness, but I'm relieved to see you've recovered. Excuse me. Oh, I got it. He looked puzzled at first but then smirked as if recalling something. Emily exclaimed, Dad, but he paid her no heed and addressed me. Thank you, idiot. I enjoyed a bit more luxurious living thanks to your money. By the way, I'm perfectly fine. You were quite resourceful, huh? Never had a doubt and readily cashed out. What? His words left me instant silence, my mind momentarily halting its processing of what he was telling me. I thought you had more money, working for a decent company and all. Only lasted half a year, huh? What a disappointment. He chuckled, observing my frozen state. Pretending to be Emily and messaging you was no easy task. Despite being informed that no calls would be entertained, you didn't stop calling. Moreover, you persistently texted me I miss you. Now you're learning how foolish you are. He planned everything, the fictional illness, the messages, the requests for money. I stood there, unable to process this astonishing revelation. Jake, I'm so sorry. I'll definitely repay you for that money, I promise. Emily shouted toward me, her voice desperate. The accompanying woman looked as shocked as if she was hearing this for the first time. Her face turned pale. What are you talking about? He gave that money. No need to pay it back. Her father scoffed. Dad, stop it. Jake, I'll definitely repay the money. Emily protested. Emily, don't talk back. Your executive director is waiting. Let's go. He seized her right arm and forcefully dragged her toward the receiving room. Despite her resistance, Emily struggled, but her father's grip only tightened. Witnessing Emily in pain, I was on the verge of intervening against her father's aggression when Mr. Johnson approached them. Is everything all right? He had come to check on them, sensing concern about the delay. Emily, are you okay? Your arm is red. What happened? Oh, nothing, Mr. Johnson. Emily almost fell, and I grabbed her too hard, I guess. Her father lied. Is that so? Perhaps it's best to cool it down. Could you please request the staff to get an ice bag for her? Mr. Johnson expressed concern to the woman accompanying Emily about her reddened arm. Sorry, Mr. Johnson. She's always been clumsy. As her father, I'm concerned about her future life. Right, Emily? Her father had now adopted a gentler tone, but the lack of sincerity sent chills down my spine. Emily remained silent, looking down. Mr. Johnson seemed to sense something was off but couldn't deduce the earlier incident from the current situation. Emily, if you're not feeling well, let's take a break. I'll explain to everyone. No, she's fine. We can cause trouble for you or the guests. If this wedding is cancelled because of something like this. Come on, Emily, you're okay now, right? Her father was desperately trying to make her walk, but Emily wouldn't budge. Mr. Johnson, I couldn't stand idly by, ignoring Emily's state, her father's earlier attitude, and Mr. Johnson's unawareness of the situation. I spoke up. Hey, you're Jake, aren't you? Glad you could make it. Both Mr. Johnson and Emily's father reacted simultaneously. Do you know Jake? Mr. Johnson inquired. Well, that. Emily's father was at a loss for words. I've only met Emily's father today, but I know Emily. Mr. Johnson, I have a bold request. Could I have a private moment to speak with Emily? Mr. Johnson was taken aback by my proposal, but Emily's father's panic far exceeded his surprise. What are you talking about? She's marrying Mr. Johnson. How can I let her be alone with you? This is an important moment. Don't interfere. Emily's father's true colors emerged in front of Mr. Johnson, his face turning red as he yelled. Mr. Johnson appeared to be contemplating something, observing his sudden outburst. Jake, I trust you, but as her father-in-law said, Emily is going to be my wife. Is it really necessary right now? Mr. Johnson asked me. I nodded earnestly. Yes. I promise not to touch Emily. Not even a finger. Mr. Johnson, never trust this man. What if Emily is assaulted by him? If she gets hurt, the wedding would be on hold. Emily's father continued to rant. Mr. Johnson addressed him sternly. Calm down, please. I know Jake well enough to trust his character and professionalism. He's not such a jerk. Or do you suggest Emily has a reason to fear him? Under Mr. Johnson's piercing gaze, her father became flustered. Emily, do you also feel it's necessary to talk with Jake? Emily looked up and nodded. Then you two can talk in the receiving room. I'll be nearby, so call me if you need me. Jake, please be mindful of Emily's condition, Mr. Johnson instructed. Absolutely, Mr. Johnson. Thank you, I responded. deeply grateful for his understanding. Once the door closed, Emily's father's yelling faded away. I released a deep breath and guided Emily to take a seat. Her reddened arm still appeared painful. "Emily, is your arm okay? Should I ask Mr. Johnson to get something to cool it down?" I offered. "We've all been terrible to you, Jake. I'm genuinely sorry." Emily apologized, locking eyes with me. "Emily, can you tell me the truth? What have you gone through all this time?" I inquired, seeking clarity. After a moment's hesitation, Emily opened up. "My dad has always been like that. He puts on a charming facade in the outside world, but at home, he's violent and destructive. It happened on a daily basis. My mom always shielded me from it. Unfortunately, she got sick and passed away abruptly because she worked so hard, pushing herself beyond her limits. It was during high school. After my mom's death, I had to step into her shoes, managing household chores, working part-time, and paying bills from my hard-earned money. I stopped dreaming about my future." Emily's current narrative was a stark departure from the girl I used to know. She appeared so sorrowful, burdened by the weight of her experiences. Thanks to my mother's relatives' generosity, I could afford college, fulfilling my mother's last wish. Dad deemed it a waste of money, but I managed to attend under the condition that I would keep working to meet financial needs. After graduating, I continued supporting him financially. I never wanted to be pulled back home. I have given up on the idea of having a relationship and getting married because I didn't want anyone to be entangled in my father's issues. But then I met you, Jake. You allowed me to experience a sense of peace, and I learned what it felt like to be with someone forever. I thought I could be with you if my dad didn't discover our relationship. However, I was very wrong." Pain twisted across Emily's face as she continued narrating her story. "My dad somehow got into my phone and discovered I was dating you. He insisted that I extort money from you, and to make matters worse, he threatened to spread malicious rumors about you. I didn't want to bring any trouble to you, so I pleaded with him not to harm you and assured him that I could provide more than enough money for him. However, he imposed a condition that I stay with him, manage the house chores, and find a job there. So, that's why you abruptly returned home." "Yes. I apologize for deceiving you." Emily lowered her head as if she couldn't bear to meet my gaze any longer. "I toiled throughout the entire day, from morning until night, thinking I was shielding you from trouble. However, my dad wasn't satisfied. Without my knowledge, he managed to reach out to you using my phone. It wasn't until half a year later that I began to sense something was amiss and discovered you had sent money multiple times. I pleaded with my dad to stop, but he refused. Instead, he threatened to blackmail you if you stopped sending money. Breaking up with you became the only way I could protect you. After that, I destroyed my phone to cut all contacts." "That's the truth," Emily affirmed with a melancholic smile. I was taken aback by the harsh reality of Emily's circumstances, her hesitant to discuss her family, her sudden disappearance, and everything in between. I understand that apologies can't undo everything, but I genuinely am sorry. I'll make amends by repaying the money, I promise. I won't allow my father to trouble you again. I truly regret the pain and deception." Emily trembled as she offered her apologies. Though I wished to provide comfort, I understood the limitations. She was on the verge of marrying Mr. Johnson, poised to embark on a journey toward happiness. My role in her life had changed. "You don't need to apologize any longer. I admit, I was lost and struggled to keep my emotions in check. Now that you've shared the truth with me, it has dispelled my confusion and erased all worries. I was genuinely concerned about you, Emily. I couldn't shake off scenarios where you might have fallen ill or your father's condition worsened. Seeing you healthy is a tremendous relief. This is my honest feeling right now. Her father is an undeniable issue, but Mr. Johnson would surely protect her." "How did you meet Mr. Johnson?" My dad asked his friend to arrange a blind date. "He wants me to marry someone wealthy." "I see. He's a good man, and he genuinely cares for me." My dad can't bully Mr. Johnson. Despite finding her father's strategy disgusting, I felt happy for Emily. He will take good care of her. She met a man who clearly loves and protects her. His sincerity was evident from his behavior during the incident that happened a while ago. I can entrust Emily to Mr. Johnson. I stared at Emily in her white dress and asked one last question. Are you happy now? Emily paused momentarily before responding. Yes, I'm fine. I'm happy. But I caught the nuance in her words. The same fine. She used the same fine when she had to leave. It was her way of showing concern and feigning strength. Again, she was saying fine again. But I was convinced it was just her putting on a brave face. After all, on her left wrist was the peridot bracelet I had given her. Why are you wearing that bracelet? Why on your wedding day? I questioned further. On her left wrist was the peridot bracelet I had gifted her. On her left finger, naturally, shone her wedding ring. Today was her wedding day, a day of celebration. The dress she wore, the ring on her finger, and the other accessories were of such high quality that their luxurious nature was unmistakable to me. The bracelet, not exactly a luxury item, doesn't quite match the occasion. As I mentioned the bracelet, Emily touched it. That's the one I gave you, right? Just as Emily started to speak, the door swung open forcefully. Startled, I turned around to see Emily's father rushing toward her, his face contorted in anger. Darn! How long are you going to waste time chatting? Get back to the ceremony, now. He abruptly grabbed Emily's left hand. Ouch! Hey, what are you doing? Shut up, you. Of all days, why today? Hey, Emily. And you too. Don't say anything unnecessary to Mr. Johnson. I will ruin your life, I swear. He glared and issued the threat directly at me. Then, he roughly tried to make Emily stand up by sharply pulling her wrist. At that moment, the clasp of the bracelet I had given her broke and fell to the floor. My bracelet. Emily hurried to pick it up, but her father stopped her. Never mind. It's cheap, isn't it? Mr. Johnson can buy you more luxurious jewelry. That's right, Emily. Ask Mr. Johnson to renovate our house tomorrow. Or maybe a luxury car. It's almost my birthday, after all. He laughed vulgarly, stepping on the fallen bracelet. Stop it! Emily cried out, attempting to move his foot away. Her father, losing balance, stumbled. What are you doing? You just need to listen to me. What happened next was unbelievable. In a fit of rage, he attempted to kick his own daughter, who was sitting on the floor. Emily. Instinctively, I covered her to protect her. Ach, Jake. I felt a dull pain on my back. Inside my arms, Emily screamed. Her father seemed to regain his senses. His voice flistered. What's happening? Hearing the commotion, Mr. Johnson and several staff members rushed into the room. Mr. Johnson. Jake. Hearing Emily's voice, Mr. Johnson hurried to me. What's going on here? And what's this? He saw the broken bracelet on the floor, me crouching down, and Emily shooting my back, with her father looking bewildered. Why are you in this room? Mr. Johnson questioned Emily's father. Well, I came to bring Emily back because she was taking too long. And then, well, that's when I saw this man attacking Emily. So I had to. And this bracelet. The bracelet. Oh, he must have been trying to steal it. That's why he attacked Emily. That's not true. Emily looked directly at Mr. Johnson, pleadingly. It's not true. My father suddenly came in and tried to take me away. The bracelet broke and fell. When I tried to pick it up, my father and Jake protected me. Emily, don't say unnecessary things. Mr. Johnson, it's not true. I was just trying to help my daughter. Let's stop this now. Mr. Johnson said quietly. Mr. Johnson, you understand, right? Yes, I understand very well. Assuming that Mr. Johnson was on his side, Emily's father visibly relaxed. Let's cancel this marriage. What? Everyone in the room gasped in shock at Mr. Johnson's words. Emily is not suitable for me. To think I, of all people, would marry a girl 10 years my junior and endure this commotion. It was all just a game, a play of marriage. While I initially thought it might be fun, my interest has waned. Mr. Johnson's cold voice filled the room, a tone I had never heard from him before. While Emily, the staff, and I stood dumbfounded, Emily's father was in a panic, sweating profusely and clinging to Mr. Johnson. No, this can't be. You can't just call it off now. Mr. Johnson, please reconsider. It's impossible. Sorry to tell you that financial support we discussed the other day will be canceled as well. At least the money, or rather, the financial aid. How about hiring my daughter as a housemaid for your family? You can do whatever you like with her. His suggestion to use Emily as a tool for money was intolerable, and Mr. Johnson seemed to share the same sentiment. I'm relieved that a scoundrel like you won't become my relative. With a look of contempt, Mr. Johnson left the room without looking back. Emily's father, pale-faced, hurried after him. Left behind, we sat in silence for a while. Shortly after, Mr. Johnson's relatives and hotel staff arrived, announcing the cancellation of the reception for a specific reason. They conveyed to us, still shocked by this unexpected turn of events, Mr. Johnson's message: "We will take care of everything. Please go home without any worries." In a daze, I left the room and rejoined Mr. Smith. Emily was surrounded by women, changing her clothes. Just before the door closed, I saw her clutching the bracelet tightly. Later, Mr. Smith told me that Emily and Mr. Johnson's marriage was annulled. Since they were going to register their marriage after the reception, they ended up with neither a marital nor a divorce record. Although his abrupt decision incurred substantial costs, such as cancellation charges, all expenses were covered by Mr. Johnson under the guise of a whim. The incident involving us was kept secret, ensuring that both my job and the contract with Johnson Housing remained unchanged. I was appointed to the position of account manager, the role previously held by Mr. Smith. Now, I'm in a meeting with Mr. Johnson at Johnson Housing. Despite various distractions and concerns swirling in my mind, I managed to focus and carry on with my work. Mr. Johnson. After the meeting, I caught up with him. "Hey, Jake. Good job again. I'm glad I made you the account manager." He said this with a friendly smile. "I heard from Mr. Smith that it was you who suggested making me the account manager." I was puzzled why Mr. Johnson would treat me so kindly despite the chaos I had caused in his marriage plans. "Yes, I value your work. I couldn't let Mr. Smith keep such a talented person all to himself." He laughed heartily. "I'm honored to hear that, but I messed up your marriage," I said. But Mr. Johnson interrupted me. "That bracelet, it was a gift from you, wasn't it?" The bracelet. Bracelet. Was he talking about Emily's bracelet? Emily wore that bracelet since the day of our arranged meeting. It suited her simple elegance so well. When I complimented her, she smiled and said, "It's my cherished lucky charm." Mr. Johnson seemed a bit sad. She always wore that bracelet. She never said who gave it to her, but it was obvious how much he cherished it. He then smiled at me. Afterward, Emily told me everything about you too. "Jake, thank you for protecting her from her father." Mr. Johnson. "It's tough, but I realized I had no chance of winning her over. I know when to step back. Oh, and that's also a key to succeeding in business. Remember that." He winked playfully. I was deeply moved by Mr. Johnson's generosity. "Jake, please make her happy. I'm counting on you." His expression turned serious, and he patted my shoulder, bringing tears to my eyes. "Yes, I'll make her happy." "Thank you," I responded, tears blurring my vision. Emily and I have since spent a lot of time talking, making up for lost time. Though she still didn't talk much about her family, she opened up about her mother. She was kind, modest, and good at saving money just like Emily. When I told her she resembled her mother, Emily smiled shyly. I learned from Mr. Johnson about Emily's father's fate. After leaving the receiving room, he continued to pester Mr. Johnson about reconsidering the marriage but failed. In a fit of frustration, he attempted to steal valuable items from the reception hall, but was caught by the hotel staff and handed over to the police. Apparently, he had been gambling and investing recklessly with the money Emily earned, accumulating a massive debt. He planned to arrange Emily's marriage into a wealthy family. Mr. Johnson was the perfect target for him to clear all debts and live lavishly. However, his plan was busted, and he ended up arrested for theft. Allegedly, he moved to another town and got a job to pay off his debts. Meanwhile, with the assistance of a lawyer recommended by Mr. Johnson, Emily signed a document with her father to sever all ties. Her smile has brightened even more now that she's free from her burdens. The broken connection between Emily and me has been mended, partly thanks to many coincidences and that bracelet. I'm with her again, determined to make her happy. Holding her hand, I feel the determination not to let go. On her finger shines an engagement ring, inlaid with the peridot from the broken bracelet, sparkling in the sunlight.